I don't think anyone needs a history lesson about Clemson football. Well, except for Disney. But let's do it anyways. In short, a no-name wide receivers coach, a guy who spent his college days as a walk-on at Alabama, got promoted to interim head coach in 2009 when Clemson finally tired of Tommy Bowden. Needless to say, this wasn't a widely popular decision at the time. First of all, position coaches are almost never promoted directly to head coach, especially of a Power 5 program. But he went 3-3 in his interim year and was given full reign of the program and swiftly started getting it back on track. His first couple of years were a bit up and down, but his infectious personality and eye for talent in both coaches and players quickly made Clemson a contender. Today he's regarded as a top 2 coach in the country, but we shouldn't forget what has helped him get there. Notably, his ability to find and hold on to some of the best coordinators in the game. His first big hire was Chad Morris at offensive coordinator, who was 1 year removed from a run of Texas high school state championships. Morris brought in a fast-paced, H-back-heavy offense reminiscent of Gus Malzahn's at Auburn, with the distinction being that Malzahn's offense borrows a bit heavier from old-school wing T offense, especially with its use of the buck sweep. While Morris left and is now coincidentally working with Malzahn at Auburn, his offense still lives on in Clemson, as it's been passed down, mostly unchanged, into the hands of Jeff Scott and then Tony Elliott. This scheme has literally reshaped college football. I of course cannot cover all the bases, but let's take a look at what it does so well and how teams try to slow it down. You can't talk Clemson offense without first mentioning wide receivers. After all, Dabo got his start as a receivers coach. They've produced a wealth of generational wideouts. Sammy Watkins, DeAndre Hopkins, and Hunter Renfrow are names that immediately spring to mind. Carrying this torch is Amari Rodgers, who alone is one of the best receivers in the country, and that's failing to mention the number 1 receiver last year, Justin Ross, who has to miss 2020 due to injury. Throwing to them is one of the best NFL quarterback prospects in a long time. Trevor Lawrence was built in a lab to play quarterback. He stands at 6'6", literally runs like a gazelle, and can throw a football over them mountains. Up until this point in his career, they haven't asked for him to carry the team much with his passing ability. They still predominantly run a lot of one receiver read concepts. They like running these quick outs in particular whenever they need an easy completion. This is sometimes packaged with a little pick if they're facing man coverage. However, some teams have keyed off on this tendency. Where Lawrence is arguably most dangerous is in the running game. This play not only highlights one of their most common running plays, but also shows off their tendency to run a lot of pre-snap motion. The H-back is motioned to the field, potentially changing the defense's gap responsibilities. The play itself is a zone read, where Lawrence reads the boundary end and decides whether to keep it or give it based on his reaction. His H-back's job is to bluff block, meaning he pulls back around the line of scrimmage and lead blocks on any man that shows. It's called bluff because it looks like he's going to block this defensive end, but doesn't. This traditionally leaves him to block this safety. You can see here that he misses this key block, which could mean the difference between a small gain and a touchdown. They really like running quarterback counter. Here they use an orbit motion to help draw linebackers outside, and Lawrence reads this backside end. Since he stays put, Lawrence pulls and follows down the gap. The threat of the quarterback counter is strong. Here this play is set up to look like quarterback counter, but the running back bypasses the linebacker and streaks upfield uncontended. Despite all this, Lawrence isn't even the best runner in the backfield. 12th year senior Travis Etienne carries much of the load for this team. What makes him truly special is his ability to gather yards after contact. Here Clemson gives a little window dressing with the jet motion to start the play, and then they run a counter with a pulling guard and H-back, which is defended well by Virginia, but Etienne breaks 2 tackles in the backfield and scores a touchdown. They run zone, gap, and even throw in several option concepts. One play that has become synonymous with their run game is the toss read. But things aren't easy for Etienne this year. The team has often had trouble getting the running game going, and a lot of that has to do with run blocking issues. However, you have to get him the ball somehow, and so Clemson has adapted by utilizing him a lot in the screen game. To give some context, he now has almost as many receiving yards as he has rushing yards. The struggles in the run game have put a larger load on Lawrence, who has handled it well. He has been challenged with a bit more of the vertical passing game, but he tends to make good reads and is an accurate downfield passer. This is one of the reasons backup quarterback DJ Uiagalelei's 2 games starting have been tougher than many thought. While he is a very talented player, there were several drives that stalled because, frankly, he's mortal. There's so much to talk about on this side of the ball, but I think that's enough for today. Now on to the defense, which is headed by probably the best coordinator in college football, Brent Venables. Venables is traditionally a 4-3 guy who loves to bring pressure and stop the run. He does this by shooting his safeties into the run fits at the potential expense of the passing game. But the name of the game for Venables is havoc. Clemson disguises coverages as well as anyone in the country. To Ohio State's quarterback, Justin Fields, the defense is showing man free as there's a deep safety and the corners are face up and pressed like man. After the snap, the corner comes off the boundary and Clemson rolls into a cover 2 look. Fields doesn't see the safety rolling down and the end is predictable. He also likes causing havoc with his fronts. In this alignment, they've stacked 3 blitzers over 2 gaps. After the snap, this defensive tackle shoots inside, which draws the offensive guard with him and opens a lane for the linebacker. In the past year or two, Venables has taken some lessons from Matt Campbell at Iowa State and has started implementing more 3-down lineman formation. This allows him to stack the field with hybrid players and really vary where he brings his pressure from. But with any defense, there's always a weak point. Venables, for the most part, is more than happy to let you move the ball by short passes down the field. The shallow route in particular stresses his defenses a lot. Their hybrid defenders also potentially pose a problem. Venables stacks the field with linebacker safety hybrids. That gives them the versatility to vary their pressures and coverages. However, Notre Dame was able to get a bit of a running game going, as their big talented tight ends presented a mismatch in the box, which was further highlighted by Clemson's injury issues in this area. Ultimately, Clemson is still one of the best teams in the nation. Even with Trevor Lawrence out, their backup quarterback led the team to overtime in South Bend against a legit Notre Dame team. Florida State, meanwhile, is the youngest team in college football. Results will not be pretty for the Noles, but as fans, the focus shouldn't be on wins and losses, in this game especially. This is a chance to face one of the premier teams in the country. Clemson represents the type of program FSU wants to return to being. These young kids have a lot to learn, and it might help to see what the bar looks like firsthand. Thanks for watching. Next week I might focus on a basketball preview instead of previewing the Virginia game, so let me know what you think about that. Make sure to check out Tomahawk Nation for more great content, and like and subscribe. See you next week. Thanks.